But the first video was Wilt Chamberlain better when he scored less? I personally, whenever I've criticized Wilt Chamberlain, it's always been on some, I ain't gonna lie, y'all gas up those stats a little bit too much. His best seasons, even like from his personal accounts, was in like 1967 when he took a scoring dip for the sake of better team movement and team basketball. And those were his most successful years in terms of winning. And those were arguably his most effective years on the basketball court. But people want to point to the 50-point per game season and gas that shit up, which, you know, rightfully so. Averaging 50 a game is insane. But let's get to the meat and potatoes, man. Shout out to Thinking Basketball.
50 points per game. 55 rebounds in a game. The only center to lead the league in assists. Some of Wilt Chamberlain's statistical feats sound made up, like he's a basketball Paul Bunyan who could only be defeated by 8 Hall of Famers and rule changes that limited his dominance.
Insane jump shot.
Some view his records as proof that he was unstoppable, while others think he had to have been playing plumbers and firemen.
Oh, well, you know, he was being guarded by plumbers and firemen.
But are those views fair? Was he a completely unparalleled scorer who could just outpass everyone on demand? Or were there other reasons that he started shooting less and passing more as his career progressed? And was Wilt Chamberlain actually a better offensive player when his scoring went down?
You are watching what greatness is all about.
Where's Larry Bird in all this?
Has it blocked by Elijah Wan? Michael Jordan saves the day.
The first season of Greatest Peaks was about the best of the best.
Oh, you know we getting nerdy when Nash is in the building.
This time we're looking at trendsetters, unique archetypes, and even controversial players who make up the legends of NBA offense.
Episode 1. Hell yeah.
He's far and away the best player I played against. I mean, it's not even close.
No star player in NBA history changed their style more drastically during their prime than Wilt. This is easy to see in his scoring numbers. His first MVP season in 1960, he averaged 38 points a game, kicking off his volume scoring years, where he peaked at 45 and 50 in back-to-back seasons. He won his last MVP in 1968, averaging 24 points per game, and finally in 1972, he finished third in MVP, averaging just 15 points a night.
Damn.
The not-so-obvious question here is, which of these was Wilt's peak? And more notably, when did he peak as an offensive player with all these changes?
Fader.
Let's start with that record-setting scoring, which sounds like it should be one of the best, if not the best offensive season in NBA history. Wilt had a pretty straightforward offensive game. Get to the low block, take a dribble or two, and flip it up. And he's posting up near the rim to use his size and explode vertically with that powerful upper body. Here's another left block post up where he's leaning for position, dislodges his defender a bit, and goes to the finger roll. This wasn't nearly as aggressive or as violent as Shaquille O'Neal a few decades later, because in the 1960s, big men weren't allowed to chisel and pound into defenders around the basket like this. Here's a play from Wilt's era where he looks for space to back into, feels a little resistance and spins, and it's an offensive foul for that teeny little chicken wing or elbow when he turns. So while Shaq was a little heavier and more powerful in his lower body, he was also able to play a more bruising style in his time. Here's Phil Jackson on the difference.
And one of the things that you were taught, just getting Wilt's path, he doesn't like offensive fouls. If you take the shoulder and you fake an offensive foul or take the charge, so to speak, he really stops becoming aggressive.
Wilt's upper body was exceptionally strong, so when he caught it deep, he could blast up toward the rim and use his size to finish over smaller defenders. The power and breadth of that frame was an issue for opponents, Bill Russell goes to lean on him a little. That gives Wilt space to step closer to the basket, so when Bill goes to front him, he seals him off for the dunk. In single coverage, if Wilt sealed off his man like this with space behind him, it was over. And of course, he was a huge target on entry passes. He also had that twisting finger roll he could go to on these deep post catches, and this was another way he used his size edge around the hoop. Instead of driving through the defender's body, he went up and over him like this. Wilt didn't really shoot a traditional shot around the basket for most of his career, instead opting for flips and finger rolls in the paint, and he'd even lob in a hook shot every once in a blue moon, but he seemed to de-emphasize traditional shooting technique at an early age.
When you're a little kid,
yo, that shit look ugly.
you see little kids play basketball, they're always just shooting the ball, but that was not as important to us as doing the other things. We never would go out and shoot after we went through our little drills, and all of our drills always incorporate a lot of running.
I think this explains why he was never really accurate from the free throw line.
Did y'all see where he was taking a free throw, bro? That shit look crazy. Look at where he starts the free throw.
I think this explains why he...
That motherfucker is taking the top of the key set shot, bro. No, that's crazy.
He was never really accurate from the free throw line, regardless of what technique he tried. His footwork was on the stiffer side, shuffling his feet before dribbling. Then the spin is a little off balance. And again, he doesn't really shoot it, but flicks it off the backboard. I'd describe him as a limited ball handler with his head off and down, and he ends up behind the backboard here. And sometimes he'd just take a single idle bounce to kill his dribble. And even when he had more space to attack, he still gives up the dribble, despite Russell backing way off his body. Then he loses his balance, so it's blocked, and there's some more clunky footwork before a gorgeous fade off the glass. Woo! That fadeaway over his left shoulder was the one modern shot in his arsenal, because Wilt was the original master of the fade. We have all the footage from a...
Y'all don't even know about that. Wilt's signature jump shot was a fader. Y'all don't know ball though, you know? It's cool, man. It's cool.
73-point game in the 1963 season, and he hit at least 8 fallaways in that one contest. The great YouTube channel 70s Fan tracked 110 shots from Chamberlain's...
Oh, we know Cardiac ain't talking. Come on, bro. We know your body. We know your body. Let me... Come on, bro. Come on. Yeah, not too much. Not too much.
Available games between 1962 and...
Yeah, I see you in chat. Yeah, not too much.
1968, and half of his attempts were fadeaways like this, making them at just over 40%. So this was a major part of his scoring game for a big chunk of his career. Because he was taking nearly 50 true shots a game, he passed relatively infrequently. Wilt averaged just 2 assists per contest in those first 3 seasons. We saw this in the first episode of Greatest Peaks, where 1962 Wilt took about 20 scoring attempts for every assist, making this just about the most scoring-centric season in NBA history.
Well, I'm gonna just get this off because we definitely still have a lot of video left. I feel like Wilt not scoring more doesn't necessarily make him a better offensive weapon, like him specifically, but I do think offenses ran better when he wasn't scoring as much. Because from what I've read back in the day, like again, so many of his teams were actually talented, but they weren't able to maximize the offensive talent that they had because of the fact that the teams are so Wilt-centric. And vice versa, Wilt Chamberlain actually believes that he would have had a better career if he played more like Bill Russell, where instead of scoring 50 or 40, he would score 20 to 25, but let, his teammates operate better. The Sam Joneses of the world, the Tom Heinsons, the Casey Jones, the Bob Cousy's. Like if Wilt Chamberlain played like that earlier on in his career, He verbatim said, he said it himself. If we really need to, I can look up the clip. Because I remember posting it on Twitter like one summer. Because, I never think about these shits during the season. That like, yo, exactly what I said. I'm not trying to, say it again.
There's been debate for decades about whether this was selfishness or poor teammates or something else. And the new Showtime documentary Goliath examines this in greater detail. And by the way, I'm actually in this documentary. It's a 3-part series produced by Religion of Sports that looks at his impact on and off the court, exploring his evolution as a player, his personal relationships, racial impact, and more. But for me, it really connects the events in his life with his approach to basketball, and it's incredibly surreal that I'm in this with Jerry West, Pat Riley, and Kevin Garnett, so I do hope you'll check it out. It's streaming right now on Paramount Plus with Showtime. Something else you'll see in that documentary is the 1957 championship versus North Carolina, and Wilt was the centerpiece of that game. On one end, UNC tried to pull his shot blocking out of the paint, and on the other, they formed a zone around him to deny him the ball, which meant his gravity freed up outside shooters, even when Wilt never touched the rock. This off-ball value in the NBA is a key component to his offense, because he was a monster on the glass and a big finisher around the hoop. They didn't really throw lobs back then, but he was a huge target to toss it up to around the rim, and a sizable chunk of his scoring looks like it came from cleaning up his teammates' misses. Wilt's length and power made him one of the best offensive rebounders I've seen on film, especially when he was younger and more agile, often tipping it like this, and he was just way too big against small teams like the Knicks.
Huge out there, though. Pause.
He would also redirect shots into the hoop, which wasn't considered offensive goaltending at the time, and I suppose this was the 60s version of a lob threat, which let his team search for a shot before he...
Nah, that motherfucker is stat padding. Let's call the spade a spade. Yeah, that's why that dude averaged 50 points a game. 20 of those were for his teammates. Nah, this is crazy. This is crazy right here, man.
He finished with a high percentage dunk.
Literally stealing back. Bruh, let me... Nah, I gotta... First of all, I just sounded crazy right there.
Search for a shot before he finished with a high percentage dunk.
That shit was low-key going in. Nah, Chad. Nah, bro. This dude is a bucket stealer.
Wilt's activity and movement on these plays could be challenging for defenses, either blocking him out or occasionally when he'd flash into the paint like this, creating a deep catch near the goal.
Chat, stealing buckets is crazy. It's crazy, yo.
Although, from the footage I've seen, he could park himself in one spot and remain stationary for the entire possession without improving his position. In 1962, he was probably just waiting down there for good scoring opportunities. Instead of flashing across the lane, he points for a ball reversal, and his teammate Guy Rogers ends up with a long jumper instead.
Oh!
But in 1964, ends up with a long jumper instead. But
I know one dude that shoots like that. I need guesses in the chat, though. In
1964, he often planted himself on the low block for a different reason, because the Warriors...
Nah. Nah, Justin too low-key. Nah, y'all go crazy. Not too much, bro. Not too much, bro.
And Wilt started to change their style of play. Wilt's extreme style from the early 1960s raises an elephant-sized question. Just how valuable can scoring be without much playmaking? For the last 30 years, we've been able to see what happens when players are on the court versus off it, and the best offensive players almost always have a heavy dose of playmaking to balance out their own scoring. Some players who don't rack up assists still create value away from the ball with their threat of outside shooting.
That jumper's so wet, bruh.
So, Wilt's offensive rebounding might help his lack of playmaking, but there's no recent evidence that great rebounding is as valuable as great playmaking. Traditional thinking is that he scored so much more than everyone else that his scoring alone bridges that playmaking gap. But remember, his rate of scoring per possession is comparable to modern leaders, and the percentage of his team's points he scored while on the court is...
Damn, Embiid was second? Damn, okay. Okay.
Isn't a singular outlier either. I think his second best scoring season is instructional here, averaging 45 points per game in 1963, nearly 8 points ahead of anyone else in history. Wilt scored 39% of his team's points that year. His efficiency relative to the league was nearly identical, and yet the Warriors posted a dead average offense and a disappointing 31-49 record. Whether they struggled because Hall of Famer Paul Arizin retired or because they traded 5-time All-Star Tom Gola, this other mega-scoring season couldn't drag a lackluster crew above offensive mediocrity. In 1964, Alex Hannum took over as coach and retooled the Warriors' offense, asking Wilt to pass out of the post more while his teammates swirled around him in constant motion. This turned Chamberlain into more of a passing hub down low, spraying it out or handing it off to cutters, and he still took plenty of shots. He just often looked to pass to someone before setting up his own offense. You're looking like
Bam Adebayo now, chat.
In the games I've seen before 1964, Wilt often caught it and went right into a scoring move. And while these quick fadeaways might be okay shots, his team system is also playing a part here. Look at how stationary Wilt's teammates are on this post-up. Jump ahead to 1964, and they throw it into the post and run split cuts at the elbow, and when nothing's open, then Wilt looks to score. These are the same split cuts that Golden State has popularized in today's game, and Hannum's Warriors ran similar actions where the passer could cut off a teammate or slice backdoor for a handoff from Wilt. Another offensive staple was throwing it into Wilt.
Sounds like I was right, though. So, my prediction was right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And cutting right at him for a handoff, and this was a concept the Lakers ran a lot with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar years later. So...
Yeah, Ernest Thompson in the chat says, so Wilt coach is the problem. I think that's more so what it is, but in terms of criticizing Wilt, quote-unquote, it is more so just putting those statistics in context. Like, are they as impressive as they look? Because, again, when you think about Wilt and just the arguments for him, 50 points a game. I average 50 points a game. He has all these records, this, that, and the third. But then when you put them into, a more scaled perspective in NBA history, in actuality, they don't look as good. In actuality, he had way more help than people want to make it seem. But that's just where I'm coming from with the Wilt overrated shit, though. So.
The 64 Warriors cultivated a sort of poorly spaced low post version of what the Trailblazers would run in the late 70s around Bill Walton, although his high post passing was far more dangerous than Wilt's in these situations.
Damn.
The other reason 1962 Chamberlain was so quick to shoot was probably that limited dribble game. He wasn't able to attack space or easily flow from a scoring move into a pass. His best passes came when he was explicitly looking to distribute, which means he rarely had scoring moves that collapsed the defense and then created a shot for a teammate. Many great playmakers will literally flow from a shot to a pass after the defense reacts, And the closest I've seen from early Wilt was this dribble for a fadeaway. He sees the double team and kicks it out nicely for an open jumper. Here's another one from his rookie season where he takes that single dribble he loves, but aborts when he senses the double, only the pass is an idle restart instead of punishing the defense on the other side of the paint.
Did you see that, dude? God damn it, Will, that was open.
I've seen him miss a few wide open layup passes like this. And in 64, he was still shooting plenty. So sometimes an open teammate lost out to a Wilt shot instead. Still, Wilt was able to set up more open shots for teammates by looking to pass out of the post like this in 1964, even if the spacing...
Yeah, it looked like a lot of his assists came from, give the ball to Wilt in the post. Let's run some off-ball actions. If you're open, Wilt will find you. If nothing happens, Wilt is going to go into score mode. But in terms of Wilt using his scoring abilities to get open shots for his other teammates, I don't think that was the case.
Of the era gave him fewer easy targets and let opponents get away with double teams where they didn't have to leave anyone open. The Celtics in particular tried to deny and double Wilt. Casey Jones crowds him. The best.
Well, it's not even, at this point, it's not even heliocentric, because even in a heliocentric, at least the on-ball playmaker is moving around and again using his scoring in order to get his teammates open, his scoring threat to get his teammates open and then find them. At this point, it's giving the ball to Embiid in the post. Let's run some backdoor screens. Let's run some floppy action. Oh, bet nobody's open and B go score.
Best pass is probably across the court, but there's no spacing and it's an awkward off-balance shot instead.
Hey Mike, we on the same timing. We on the same timing. Come on, bro.
Here's another play from the 64 finals where Jones sags way off his man to deny Wilt the ball, conceding an open shot. And again, there's that same technique. Then when Wilt finally catches it down low, he's doubled and has a cutter in the lane, but instead tries it himself with the kiss off the glass. Improved spacing would have opened passing lanes and made this more efficient, but cutting and moving off Wilt's playmaking could lead to good offense. As a passing hub, he could even use the threat of the pass to set up.
Hey, chat, just take note of that. That's the new one. Passing hub, okay? Let me tell you, if there's one creator that's been the most influential with how we literally talk about basketball, it is Thinking Basketball. So if we want to keep up with the terms and keep up with the times, just take notes of these little terms that he's using. Passing hub, all right? That's the new one.
Up a shot, something I haven't seen in clips before 1964. So he had similar athleticism to that 50-point year, but strategically looked to pass more when he caught it down low. And
y'all gonna hear KB and Eli use this in a space in 2 months. I'm just saying.
Some of that stylistic adjustment looks like it carried over to the 76ers when he was traded back there in 1965, setting up a sequel where Wilt passed more and shot it even less. In 1966, the 76ers finished with the best record in the NBA, ending a streak the Celtics held for 9 consecutive years. But Boston still knocked off Philly in 5 games en route to another championship. Wilt averaged a career best 5.2 assists to go with 34 points per game that year. But again, his team's offense was only slightly above league average, even though he was no longer flanked by defense-first players. Philly featured 10-time All-Star Hal Greer, 7-time All-Star Chet Walker, and a rookie named Billy Cunningham, who would finish 3rd in MVP in 1969.
That's crazy white boy activity. Type shit. Look at him sucking back his hair. Look at
Billy Cunningham, who would finish 3rd in MVP in 1969.
Hell yeah.
In the 1967 season, Alex Hannum came east to coach Wilt again, bringing with him that movement offense built around Chamberlain in the post. Only this time he was surrounded by better shooters. Even their power forward, Luke Jackson, could step outside and make jumpers. And Greer was one of the best 3 or 4 mid-range shooters in the entire league. These players could also create their own offense, so they didn't have to play through Wilt as much. Walker and Cunningham could score off the bounce, and Greer in particular could start cooking teams all by himself with the ball.
Dang.
This is a little high pick and roll with Wilt, where he crosses nicely away from the screen for a long 2.
The cross?
And Hal could create offense for his teammates too, so it was natural for Chamberlain to take a smaller role with stronger offensive teammates. Here's how Coach Hannum described it.
It was not necessary for him to score in order to win. It wasn't necessary for him to carry the whole load offensively. He had the type of talent to play with, and this gave me...
Okay, so it sounds like this is the exact same system, but just better personnel. That whole, like, feed the ball to Wilt in the post, let's run off-ball action, is better personnel. People that can actually hit that shot better is what I'm getting at. And then also a little bit more individual playmaking instead of just relying on Wilt.
All kinds of weapons.
I also think Philly had slightly better spacing than the 64 team in San Francisco. Wilt often caught it a few steps farther out, and that opens the lane for plays like this, a beautiful pass on a backdoor cut to Walker for a layup. This also helped Wilt with his own passing. They run the split action, but this time he actually has a skip pass to the other side to a shooter. Compare that to 64, where Wilt is parked in a driving lane, and everything's a touch more cramped, so passing is harder. Here's a mid-post catch in Philadelphia into split action. He might have Cunningham, but instead Jones wheels around to get it, and then Wilt can go hit the glass and clean up.
Hey.
Because of this improved offensive system, Chamberlain missed more passes from what I saw, but he also made more quality passes than in any prior season. So I think he was in a better passing environment, but he also improved a little as a distributor. Here's a beautiful interior pass for a layup.
Damn.
And this is a rare instance of him manipulating defenders with the shot fake to free up a teammate.
There you go.
He also just looked to score less this year. He doesn't even think about attacking here, and maybe playing slightly higher in the post deterred him a little. On this play, he's only a few feet farther out, but a finger roll from 6 feet is way more comfortable than this 10-foot attempt. Part of this change was obviously trusting his teammates to orchestrate. He's quick to reset to Greer here and let him go to work. And I think the other part was him just slowing down a little physically. Wilt gained a ton of weight over the years, and that took away some of his agility and explosiveness. Although he still had most of his mobility compared to 1964, and that added strength continued to make him valuable away from the ball, nearly dunking Russell into the hoop here.
Oh, shit.
A good chunk.
Shout out to Ambrose for the $5. John Stockton can make it in today's NBA if Jaylen Brown, who can't go left, is getting a supermax. Also, Jason Kidd over Chris Paul, for being honest. Now, what's up, bruh? What's up? What the fuck? First of all, we're gassing Jaylen. Maybe we are getting to the point where Jaylen Brown's getting overhated, man. I ain't gonna lie. Jesus Christ. Jaylen Brown has a left hand. It's just not good enough to be exploited. Does that make sense? It's just lackadaisical enough to be exploited. I guess that's a better way to say it. You know? Jason Kidd over Chris Paul. Why? Like, why, though? Why?
Of his offense in the games I've seen from this period.
T-Bones. Why is chat saying T-Bones?
came off ball because he was still a huge target and great finisher around the rim. It also helped having better passers like Greer to find him down there, and his additional muscle made him a beast on the offensive boards. We can only estimate offensive rebounding numbers for those years, and 1967 looks like Wilt's best season on the glass, blending his length, power, and activity since he was no longer the focal point of the offense. And these clips remind me a little of trying to keep Shaq off the glass in his heyday.
Hey!
The result was a hyper-efficient regular season, 14 percentage points ahead of league average in true shooting, and that helped Philly produce the best offense in the first 20 years of the league. Coach Hannum is a big part of that story too, because his style unlocked all of Philadelphia's talent, and that movement-heavy proto-triangle system he ran had a history of improving offenses for...
I'm gonna lie, one of these days, chat, I'm gonna stream a 1960s basketball game on Kick. So if y'all haven't already, follow me on Kick. We can get to the meat and potatoes, because I swear to God, the last time I watched a game from the 1960s, it is not what you think it is. Trust me, it is not what you think it is. You would think because everything is black and white and it's, segregation basketball, that it's just walking up the court, post, dump it in the post, boop, miss. Trust me, the pace, those pace numbers are that for a reason. Without a shot clock. You would think without a shot clock, shit would be slower because there's no shot clock. Let's drain the clock down as much as possible so we can get out of here with the score of 20-14. Nah, they be running up and down the fucking court, bro. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Or multiple franchises. I'm also a big believer that playoff numbers are more important, and Wilt's best postseason scoring numbers weren't actually in his 1962 mega season, but they came in the 1964 playoffs. He only played 12 games those years, and using raw points per game places it near the best postseason runs of that era. We can also see the radical shift in his game over the years by looking at that ratio of shots to assists. 1962 was extreme scoring. 1964 was more of a balance between scoring and creating that resembles many other modern superstar seasons. And 1967 is...
What is that? What is a true shot? Listen, bro, I'm not trying to be this some nerdy shit. But what is a true shot, bro? What is
actually closer in style to a pass-heavy point guard. As a reminder, Wilt was a monster on defense, so his play on that end will influence his overall peak, but here we're primarily interested in his offense and which of these scoring styles produced the best result. If I had to pick, 1962 is probably a little too devoid of playmaking, but 1967 also lacks the same scoring pressure that he generated in 1964 when he balanced those two skills more. Either way,
so essentially that's what I'm saying. As far as Wilt individually being an offensive threat, I don't know if it's 1962 because of the playmaking deficiencies that he talked about and all that other shit. But in terms of what version of Wilt is going to generate you the best functioning offense, it's probably going to be in those later 1960s years where he's able to, pass more, make more. He's not looking to score every time he gets the ball, shit like that. I know ball, okay? Okay, chat? Stop it.
I think the key lesson here is at the heart of successful offense, and something Alex Hannum knew all along. There needs to be a balance between individual scoring and playmaking, because 5 players are harder to stop than 1. And since Wilt's mega scoring couldn't single-handedly create a strong offense...
Yo, Mike said, time for MPJ to learn this. Now, y'all are crazy.
Any good team would need him to pass more and score less. Remember, the Goliath documentary is streaming now on Paramount Plus.
Hey, go stream that Goliath documentary, man. Shout out to Thinking Basketball for the video. Always a great pleasure to watch his videos, man. Always learn a lot, too. You know what I'm saying? I just think some of y'all need to actually form your own opinions instead of just watching Thinking Basketball and low, and even my streams, and just regurgitating it. Form your own opinions, man. I ain't gonna lie. But shout out to Thinking Basketball. Also, shout out to the stash, bro. I ain't gonna lie. My stash is coming in looking solid.